Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Uncorked with Funny Wine Girl. This is Funny Wine Girl, aka Janine Luby, and I am super excited about my guest this week. Although, if you do listen to my podcast, you're probably thinking she says that every week, but that's because I have great guests. I know great women, and one of the main goal, I guess I would say, of this podcast is to promote and support other women because I think it's important, and I just like to do it, and I think it's they're worthy and they have awesome stories to share. So this week we're going to be talking to Danielle Fleming. Danielle owns a wonderful place called Noteology in Scranton. There's also a location in Clark Summit. And Danielle, but she goes beyond that. I mean, her stuff has been in Emmy swag bags, her stuff's the shit. So it's really good and it smells a lot better than that. She has a wonderful perfumery and great part, which is so unique. You won't find this I don't know where you find the next place. You can make your own fragrance. And I think it's the coolest thing. I've done it. I've taken my dad, who's turning 85 this year. He loved doing it. He has his February Frost. You get to name your fragrance. I have my J. Lou After Dark because I want to sound mysterious. And I took friends who visited from France. And now I'm going to sound completely pretentious, but I'm really not. Trust me. I don't have enough money to be. I have friends I made from France. They came to visit Scranton in 2015. And for those folks who say, what's to see in Scranton, or maybe they only know the office, there is a lot to see and beautiful architecture, nature, businesses like Danielle's. I took my friend Marie and her husband, John Claude, and Marie made a fragrance. And it was something she took home to France. She waited to use it for her 70th birthday. It was such a delight. She actually had tears in her eyes. She was so excited about it. So that is my little spiel of how I know Danielle. I've actually done fundraising with Danielle. I've done a ladies' night there where I did some comedy. Wonderful. Danielle's a complete entrepreneurial spirit. And you can, of course, find her all over social media and Noteology, the website. Please say hello. Say hello. You're on a podcast. You're listening. So I'd like you to, in your car or in your kitchen. So now you could say hello to Danielle Fleming. Welcome, Danielle.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited. And of course, you have to thaw out from the cold. So a little bit of brain freezes here. But I'm sure people at home are like, hi, Danielle.
Yeah, it's a little chilly this morning. It definitely is, for sure.
I am so excited. I honestly want to ask and talk to you about so much that in a way, I don't even know where to begin.
Yeah.
I love the fact that you have a degree in psychology. And I'll admit, you started before this business. You had Danielle and Company, right?
Yeah.
Soaps and things. Mm-hmm. I remember reading about you because you're a powerhouse. You are someone that's been, talked about, and rightfully so, in the area and beyond. Well, I remember reading that you had this degree in psychology, and I was like, huh. And at the time, I'll admit my reaction was like, well, that's interesting or weird. Like, how'd she end up? But now the more I think about it and the more that, making fragrance at your place, it makes so much sense. Could you talk a little bit to psychology and sense and what we like and what that all means?
Yeah, definitely. So how I got into the business was I wanted to be a psychologist for a very long time. That's what I went to school for. So I do have a bachelor's in psych. And then when I was in my master's work, I was interning at a local university, and it was really extensive internship. It was a full 2 semesters, 40 hours a week. I mean, it was a legitimate job. And what I was noticing with the students was they were coming to me for talk therapy, and there was a group of them that didn't need medication, but they needed something else in their routine to help them. They needed like one other thing, but not meds. So I went back to the research journals and I was looking for alternative type of therapies that I could give them that were pretty holistic, and things like your typical, journaling, yoga, meditation, guided techniques, things like that came up. But then I came across an article about the powerful effects of aromas on your moods and behaviors. And I was like, oh, I didn't learn about this in school. This is cool. What's this about? And I dove into that research and looked at really kind of the powerful effects that scent can have. So it's, then the question is, well, how does that all work? Basically your olfactive system is connected to the limbic system in your brain. Limbic system is what controls memories and emotions. So when you're smelling something, and we talked about this earlier, when you're smelling one random thing and all of a sudden it brings you back to your childhood, or you go into, the feeling of Thanksgiving dinner and it smells so good and it brings you back to every single Thanksgiving you've ever had based on the smell of that turkey and gravy that your mom made for you and you loved. That connection is all coming through your sense of smell. So it's the only sense that we have that has this direct connection to the limbic system. And that's why it's so, so powerful. So I was just fascinated by that, how what you smell, how you smell it, your connection to it could really influence how you feel. And that kind of dovetails into, fine fragrance. Why do we put fine fragrance on our skin? Why do we wear perfumes and colognes? Because they don't have a benefit other than their aroma. They're not like a lotion that's going to moisturize your skin. They're not a soap that's going to cleanse. They're purely just for aroma. So why do we wear them? Well, we wear them because we want to feel good. It really, truly comes down to that. So feeling good can mean a lot. That's open to interpretation. So what's good? Is good sexy? Is good confident? Is good relaxing? It could be any of those things for a person, a mood, an occasion. And I really just was so fascinated by how what we smell can influence us in a great way. And so I brought it into my practice. So when I first started, truthfully, I kept it under the radar because I didn't run anything through IRB. I did not, I just sort of did it on the side. And I started making soap. That was really the first product that I ever produced. My rationale behind that at the time was, I didn't want people sniffing vials of oils. That was weird. I knew they wouldn't do it. It's an odd thing to just sniff for sniffing's sake. So I said, I have to get sent into somebody's daily routine without them seeing it as medication. So that became soap. Back in the day, the internet was not what it was. You went to the library and you got a book, and I got a book on soap making and took the research on different oils and the different effects that they would have that's been studied, put those into the soaps, made my soaps on my kitchen stove, gave them out to my clients, and they really enjoyed it. And it was also working. So that was great. But then I had these extra. So how it kind of went into a business was that I would always have extra product and I just gave it away. And people would say, oh, can I have some more? I'll give you a couple bucks. Well, at the time I was only interning unpaid. So I was like, sure, I'll take some extra cash. That's great. And then before you know it, people were showing up at my door for product. And then that got to be strange. So I went on to selling craft shows and then opened up the retail stores, and it kind of went from there. And I had to really make a choice in there. Few years into it, what do I want to do? Because my path always since high school was, I want to be a psychologist. I'm going to go on, get my PhD, open a private practice. That was the route that I wanted to go. And so I continued up into that, and I worked on a PhD program. And then at some point, right before dissertation, I said, am I actually going to go and be a psychologist? I had built a successful business at this point, and I really couldn't do both anymore. I really tried to think in my head, like I could be an entrepreneur and a psychologist at the same time. So I had to make a choice, which one. And how I decided to do that was, for 1 week, I tracked every morning what I did first. Did I go and study? Or did I work on my business? And every single day I worked on my business. So, so through that, I have another master's degree. Didn't finish the PhD, have another master's degree in place of that. And that's really time sort of when I broke away from academia and really, really honed in on the business. And so that's how I got into it. I was not people like, oh, were you a fragrance junkie? Did you love fragrance all the time? And it was not that. I'm more interested in how it affects you, not necessarily the smell of it. I make fragrances for our brand and other brands. And even for other brands, I'll make something that I don't personally care for, but if they love it and that's what they want, then that's my job to provide it, whether or not I like it. So it's, I've been doing it for 20 years now, and it's still very, very interesting to me. And I love that. And then with the pandemic, I had to shift my focus, because when COVID hit and we got a few months into COVID, people were coming to me saying, I lost my sense of smell. Can you help me?
Mm.
And I never studied what's called anosmia, which is when you lose your sense of smell. I never studied that side of it ever, because I was always into what you could smell and how that made you feel. I didn't really have an interest or a fascination with what happened when you can't smell. So when about a dozen people asked me that, I said, maybe I should kind of spend some time figuring this out. Can I help anybody? So I spent a lot of nights. It was very much like back in school, going back into the research, back into the data, like, what do you do with anosmia? How do you help people? What is scent therapy? How does that work? What's already out there? Do we have proven systems? How can I make that available to people here? So that process was about 6 months or so, that I was able to get the information that I needed, that I felt I had enough info and enough knowledge. And I put together a sense of smell kit that is scent therapy for people who have lost their sense of smell to a post-viral infection like COVID. So it allowed me to hop onto a different side that I've never been involved in, which was really interesting. So I've learned quite a bit about anosmia and all the different things that come with that. So yeah, kind of sidetracked there, but it
No,
was an interesting detour for me.
that's great. I'm going to stop you just for a second because you said so many great things. I love the fact that you still love what you do.
Yeah.
I love the fact that, and I'll admit myself, a lot of us don't do these things, and really it's for your best interest. You took time and you said, what do I do first in the morning? I think that's really interesting because you were a lot of younger people. I taught part-time at King's College for 7 years. A lot of younger people are like, how do I know what I want to be? Or how do I know which one I like better? I like this and I like that. That's such an interesting approach. It's like when you wake up, what is it that you're interested in? And
Yeah.
you track that and you understood. The other thing, I think it's great. And I think you're a true entrepreneur. I really do, because that's what entrepreneurs do. They look to create solutions to problems and to be timely and to be willing to change and not be stuck. You found there was this problem and then you did your research and you created a solution. And I think I want to come back to a couple other things, but since we're already headed in that direction, we were talking before I hit the record about the pandemic. And I remember when it hit, I was looking at your post and your website. You really adapted. Like you had your sanitizer that you made, the hand sanitizer, you had masks, and you had this great brand of like these headbands that could be worn as headbands. And I remember buying a few because they're so cute, but they could also be pulled up over your nose and your mouth. And you just really took where you were and went with it. I like to tell people, because I've done improv, the whole idea of yes and when you're on stage, I think we need to do in life, and people who can do it will thrive. Yes, and we didn't ask for the pandemic. We certainly didn't want it. We have it, so we could keep cursing, crying, spiraling, and that's fine to vent, but then you have to move forward. And you absolutely did that. Can you just talk to that about, I mean, obviously, again, I think it's easy for anyone to tell that you're an entrepreneur at heart and that you just think like an entrepreneur. But when it did hit, like you responded pretty quickly. Could you tell us a little bit about that whole process and how it affected your business and what happened?
Sure. So when the pandemic hit, like right in the very beginning, there was the hand sanitizer scarcity. Along with that and the towels, people were just scooping it up and you couldn't find it, and myself included. So when I was trying to get hand sanitizer, I couldn't find it. And my husband, Mark, and I are in the business together. And we were saying to each other one night, I'm like, I can't find any hand sanitizer. And he said to me, like, can't you just make it? I'm like, I don't know. I've never made it before. Let me research it. So I went and researched it. And lo and behold, I came across the World Health Organization's formula. So it wasn't even my own formula. It was a formula that the World Health Organization put out there as a sanitizer. Now, the thing is most organizations, nobody around here has those ingredients on hand. Well, lo and behold, I have all those ingredients on hand, except the peroxide. We don't use hydrogen peroxide in any of our other products. So I just had to source one more component, which actually was super challenging because everybody was then at that time like making it at home, and they were like getting stuff at CVS. Like you just couldn't find anything anywhere. But once I was able to source the hydro, I was able to put the formula together, mass produce it. I use all great ingredients. So we've had tremendous feedback on our hand sanitizer that people are saying it's so great. It's the best one I've used. And that's just purely based on the quality of the ingredients that we use. But as far as like pivoting, we sort of in the beginning did it out of necessity because I couldn't find any hand sanitizer. And Mark's like, well, just make it. You make everything else, just make it. And that's what we did. And then it became, okay, well, I'm going to make it for ourselves. Yes, I have the formula. Now I have the ingredients. Then I had to source packaging, which was going out the window like crazy. You couldn't find that. So that was like literally 12 hours a day trying to source packaging and get that to come in. That was probably the most challenging, was the packaging part. Supply chain is worse now, but it was very challenging then. And then getting it, producing it, and then getting it out to you guys. So we had to really get the message out that we had the hand sanitizer, and we did that very quickly. And I do think, to your point, this all happened over a couple of days. It sounds like it took weeks, but it didn't. I mean, it was very fast. And it was, I think, my ability to execute quickly, get all the components in place, get it out to everybody through marketing and messaging was the key to kind of pivoting in that and having that success. So right as that happened, also our retail stores were shut down. So we were allowed actually to stay open because we were manufacturing the hand sanitizer. So we were considered essential, and we could have kept our doors open in retail, but we elected not to. We wanted to really have a very small team doing this. We were all very afraid of getting COVID. For me in particular, if I were to lose my sense of smell, that's very challenging for me in my work to not be able to smell. So that was my biggest fear, is I just didn't want to lose my sense of smell. But at that point, we didn't even know what was going on. I mean, it was so chaotic. So we wanted to kind of really make everything much smaller, just manufacture. We did, curbside pickup and delivery. But a part of that pivoting, looking back on it, I think I attribute that to my experience and longevity of being an entrepreneur, seeing a problem, finding a solution, and doing it very quickly. I think executing quickly is the hardest part for a lot of people. A lot of people have great ideas, and then executing it all is a challenge. Executing this fast, I think, was the key to pivoting. So from that, like you had mentioned, it went from the hand sanitizer, and there was like, okay, what else do we need? We all need masks. Now we can't find masks. So I found a local seamstress to make masks for us. And then the headbands came up. I said, oh, that would be great. That's another alternative too. Let's do that. And then we did ear guards. So we were constantly sort of looking into the market, seeing what people needed, seeing if we could source it. And if we could, then getting it back out to you guys. And that significantly helped us through really 2020. It was what helped us stay afloat. But the pandemic itself has been very challenging, and it still is. I've told many people this, being an entrepreneur is not easy during this time. Faint of heart, this is not for you. It is a tough gig in and of itself in a normal time. It's very tough. You've got people, for ourselves, we've got 9 employees, depending on us for our livelihood. It's my husband and I's livelihood. It's our only livelihood. We had to keep things going. And it's been challenging right now. The biggest thing is supply chain and logistics are very, very, very challenging. I actually just got off a call this morning about packaging, and, some things are 9, 10, 11 months out. And you have to buy early, and it disrupts your cash flow, and it's tough. It's still not easy.
Yeah. Well, and we're not, even though watching the news, we're not out of it, but we don't realize, because you don't hear on the news, unfortunately, about like these types of issues and how it all fits together. Like you said, you have to order so far out in your cash flow. So it really is still doing a number on your businesses. It's really a challenge still.
Yeah, for us it is. And even with with masking and social distancing in our custom perfume studio, where you come in and make your own fragrance, we are by appointment only now. We separate out the appointments. People are social distance within their groupings within the store. We only do it in one location now, in our Scranton location. As far as Clark Summit, we stopped that because we just don't have enough room. So we've had to adjust many, many aspects of our business through this, and we're still adjusting. From, this past summer, staff was masked, but customers weren't. Now we're 100% masked, customers regardless of vaccination status. So it's changed and evolved as the scenario has evolved. But I think we're still in this for a bit. And it's hard. I do believe, talking to my other entrepreneurial friends, there is this COVID burnout, that's happening. And I don't think it's just entrepreneurs. I think, it's tiring to maneuver all the time for things that I never had to maneuver for before. So
Yeah.
it's yeah, like I would love to be done with it. You know, it's I'm like really done with it, but the world isn't. So we will continue to adapt. And I think you have to, you know, if you could, if as a business owner, if you couldn't pivot, adapt, maneuver some way, you're stagnant and stale, and you maybe, you know, won't make it. And we just did what we could.
Yeah. Well, and I saw a meme today on Facebook talking about burnout. It was something like, yeah, no, I haven't tested positive yet, but I've been tired for 1,000 days or whatever. And
Right?
it's like, we're
Yeah.
all to some degree, not to be dramatic, but even if you haven't had it, you're like, it wears on you, like the
Yeah.
existence of it, the hearing about it, the, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like you said, we're not done with it. So, I mean, that's where the yes and comes in. No one wants it. Like we want to get back to normal. We want to be able to go out and do all kinds of events and not worry, but we're not there. And
Yeah.
there's nothing we, you know, so we just have to do what we can and move forward. And like you said, to pivot. I mean, I think with the businesses, and I said to you earlier, like if a business wasn't, you know, doing well before the pandemic, this certainly didn't help them, you know. So there
Right.
was obviously there was a good chance they were going to go out of business, some restaurants, some small businesses. And while it's, I don't want to sound unfeeling because while it is sad, there's no sense in like keeping it open. And I mean, I can't imagine what it's like if you've had a business, let's say 30 years, and you realize now you didn't want it to end. Now you have
Mhm.
to. It is
Yeah.
painful, but
Yeah.
is it beneficial to you, your family, your finances to keep going if you're not able to adapt? It's just unfortunate. And believe me, I just think it's something that we have to go, well, it's horrible, but it has to happen unless we can figure out a way that to adjust to the situation.
No, I agree totally. You know, I've said to in conversation to other people, you know, if you did want to ever get out of your business, this is the time. Like take this, like take it and just move on and do whatever else you wanted to do. Because going through this, if you don't want to go through it, this is really challenging. You know,
Yeah.
I'm up for the challenge and we have been, and it's exhausting and it's been really challenging. But if you are on the fence of ever wanting to close your business, I would say like do it. And, like
Yeah.
take it and just go do that other thing that you want to do next.
Yeah. Which to capital or to build on that point you made, there are people who opened and started businesses during the
Mhm.
pandemic. And to your point of, let's say, you know, hey, well, I always wanted to be a cowboy. Well, move to Montana now. You can be like
Right?
Yellowstone, right? I mean, but this is the time. And again, no one wanted the pandemic. And I'm not trying to say it's good, but sometimes we have to see what's in front of us and see where the opportunities are,
Yeah.
because there are some opportunities in this. Because I was watching a presentation earlier from a recent conference, and it said that it's up 25% the amount of people starting businesses right now,
Mhm.
because people are like, hell, you know, I wasn't happy at this job and things have
Mhm.
changed and I don't like how they've changed or whatever. Now's the time to try out something different in your life. And some people have done great with
Yeah.
I mean, again, I'm not dismissing like the challenges you're having and everything, they exist, but some people have actually started businesses during the pandemic and they're doing
Yeah.
okay.
And I think that kind of bodes to, you know, you only live once. I know that's very cliche, but you get one round around here and that's it. So I think the pandemic was like, put some people on pause and say, yeah, I want to do that and I'm going to go for it. And so I applaud anybody that's starting a business in any time, but to start it in a challenging time is tough. But if you can weather this storm, you will most likely weather every other storm that comes along too. I don't think we'll see this again in our lifetime, but if we do, you know, we'll be prepared. So yeah, I encourage anybody to go out and do what they want to do. If they truly have a plan, understand what it takes to be an entrepreneur, because I think there is that sort of disconnect of what it is and what it takes to do this for a living. This is not a hobby. You know, there's the thing that probably frustrates me the most is hobby businesses. Um, you know, there's a line between it's a hobby and it's my living. And I hope more people can understand the difference between the two.
Yeah. And if not, they'll learn it quickly, right?
Yes,
Or
you
pretty
will.
quickly, I
You
would
will.
say. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely, definitely.
To continue on just for a little bit about your entrepreneurial spirit, I want people to understand that you also, and you can explain this too, you also have Olfactive, which is another, I guess, another part of your business, or it's attached to Noteology. Do you want to talk a little bit
Yeah.
about that?
Yeah. So Olfactive is a business that I acquired in 2018. And it is a fragrance subscription box service that completely focuses on the niche fragrance world. So the niche fragrance world are perfumers like me, brands that are sort of at my size or larger or smaller, but they're the niche ones. So they're underground, they're up and coming, they're not what everybody else is wearing, they're not department stores, they're not celebrity, they're not mass brands, it's everybody else of that. So it's really unique. We are supporting perfumers and brands across the world. It's not just the United States. So around the world, we have brands that we work with, and we send out a box every month with fragrance samples based on a theme. And that way you can explore the samples for the month. And then if you like what you're smelling, you can buy the full-size bottles online. So we acquired that business in 2018. The owner came to me. Our brand was in the box a few times, and she came to me and said, hey, I'm not able to scale this anymore. And I was like, all right, yeah, I'll take a chance. It was really nice for us to sort of diversify our portfolio. We have retail, we have wholesale, we have online, we have custom and private label manufacturing, but we never had a subscription box. So I was curious, people who know me well, they always know I need to have a project. And so that became, my project for that year. And we acquired that company and have been able to scale it. And it's very interesting and fun to watch. And I've learned a ton, and it's exciting. So yeah, so that's another business that we have that is under our umbrella of companies. And then as you know, I got into some real estate in the Finger Lakes and doing vacation rentals and Airbnbs. So that's another side hustle. Olfactive is definitely not a side hustle. That's just another part of a business, but the real estate is still in the side hustle arena at the moment.
And that's a great place for us to transition, because I want to we'll talk a little bit about wine. So your place, yeah. I'm super excited. My friends and I have it booked for first weekend in February. I have loved looking at the pictures of all along when you started. It's an old schoolhouse, right? In Burdett, yeah. New York, on Instagram, watching you make the changes to it. And since then, you have that land. So you have, is it 4 now micro cabins that are on there too? And yeah. They all look absolutely, from the pictures, beautiful, cozy, and just wonderful. I mean, they're they look gorgeous. Yeah, and I can't wait to get up there. But so that's wine country. So I want to ask you a little bit here before we get into that, what kind of wines you like. I wanted to ask you a question about, so about a year or so ago, I got into being, talk about side hustle, but it's like, I won't even call it a side. It's probably like a kernel of a hustle, because I'm not doing a lot with it, but I'm an independent wine guide for a company called Traveling Vineyard. And they do a lot of the research. They have a sommelier on staff, and they give us all the descriptions of the wine and things like that. So when I do a tasting, I use their descriptions, because even though, like, I think I have a really good sniffer when it comes to like fragrances, but when it comes to tasting, I cannot tell you, because it could be like, I'm tasting burnt tire, and I'm tasting, I don't know what. I know that I can tell sweet, I can tell the basics, but when they're like, oh, it's got a hint of pear or hint of this or that, I have trouble. But a little experiment they have us do, and I love it because I see the effects. They have us hold our nose and and I'm sure you know this and more, like put a jelly bean in, right? And have people chew, and then you're not tasting anything, and then unplug your nose, and you're like, wow. So could you talk a little bit to the connection between like aroma and what we taste, our taste ability?
Yeah, definitely. And so, funny enough too, so they're very interconnected. And even in the industry, so every major fragrance house, so a fragrance house is a place that is a manufacturer of this aroma chemicals, the oils, things like that, things that make it smell. So every major fragrance house also has a flavor house. So they're, those businesses are one and the same. They're always together, which is interesting. So they're extremely connected. There's debate on how much the connection is, but it's anywhere between 70 and about 90% of what you taste is from what you smell. So this also became very relevant with COVID, because everybody was losing their sense of taste and their sense of smell, or they had some taste but no smell, or they had some smell and no taste, and people were like freaking out as to like, what was right, what was wrong, and things like that. So to sort of break it down into brass taxes, your sense of taste is like what you said, it's sweet, it's sour, it's salty, it's bitter, umami, that's what we're tasting. You really don't truly lose your sense of taste in the fact that like your taste buds aren't damaged, right? Unless you maybe like damaged your tongue in some regard. But you can taste those five that I mentioned, but flavor is what works with your sense of smell. So you could bite into, if your eyes were closed and you bit into a strawberry, you could say, yeah, this is sweet, but you probably couldn't say it's a strawberry until you open your nose, like you said with the experiment, right? So once you open that nose, you say, oh, it's a strawberry. So your sense of smell is really triggering flavor, not taste. So that's sort of breaking it down a little bit more. And that's how it works together. So with COVID and everybody going through this, some people say, I can only taste salt, everything tastes salty, or I can only tell it's sour, but I really can't tell like it's a potato chip, or I can't tell it's a watermelon. That's because your sense of smell is not working properly yet. So smell is what gives you flavor. Your technical taste buds give you taste.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting because before I did the tastings, I do a ton of research, but I was just reading about it and I found it was interesting that we can only really taste, is it like 5 different things, but yet different articles, depending on different sources, will say that the nose can smell like trillions of scents and it just keeps growing, I guess. Yeah.
That number keeps on growing too. It started out at 10,000 probably 10 years ago or so. It's gone up to 80,000. I mean, there's still a lot of research to be learned. Interesting enough too, your sense of, when you think of all of your senses, we study the most our sense of, our eyesight and hearing, because that's really affecting our daily life the most. Through researchers' eyes, through the NIH, there really has always been the most money has been put towards, sight and hearing. And it makes sense. But with COVID, we're hoping that we're going to get some more research and some federal funding that we could do more research into sense of smell, and trickles down into sense of taste. But it's always been on, sight and hearing. But what happens when you lose your sense of smell? There's things that people don't realize that happen until you really get into this world. So imagine that you can't smell, you lose your sense of smell through COVID. You can't smell a fire, right? So all of a sudden you're anxious before you go to bed at night because you're thinking, well, what if my house catches on fire and I can't smell it? Because that's going to be your first alert, right? If your kitchen's on fire and you're in your bedroom, you're not going to see it. You're going to smell it first. Well, now you can't smell. So now you're anxious that you can't smell. And now, because of that, you're getting into this sort of anxiety, depressive mode of, shit, I can't smell. Now I'm nervous. Now I'm anxious. Now I'm getting depressed. And the depression part comes in even more because now you're not getting any pleasure senses. So when you can't taste and can't smell, nothing, you don't eat because really nothing tastes like anything. So you're not getting any pleasure. There's no fragrance wearing because you can't smell it. Right? You want to feel good, but there's nothing to even make you feel good. So now you're getting depressed because nothing feels good at all. And so you've got anxiety and depression just because of your loss of sense of smell. So I do think the allocation of funds towards research will move towards more of sense of smell and sense of taste through what we've gone through with this pandemic. Now, I totally feel I got off track with this.
No.
Did I miss your question?
No. I love that you spoke to that, because I will tell you, and again, it's not like I'm out there searching every day. I have never heard that explained like that or even thought of it in that way, because you might just kind of dismiss it and say, oh, so you can't put on your Gina Tay. God forbid I wouldn't, or you can't taste, that apple pie. You'll get over it. But to what you're saying, how it ties in is like, it's so much bigger than that. And really it's so much to the quality of life. And like you said, the depression and everything, that is just like, that's really interesting way to look at it. And I hope they do get the funding for that.
Yeah, it's and so that really ties in, but going back to my psych background of being like, okay, like, this is something we do need to work on and capture. And not to say there's not research being done. There's a, Monell Institute in Philadelphia really spearheads that for the United States. They do a great job. It's not that this has not been worked on. It's just so many people have been affected by it now. There's, when you dive into anosmia, there's things called parosmia, there's things called phantasmia, where people are smelling phantom smells that are not there. So and they're never good smells. So they may smell rotting meat and it's not there, or they may smell smoke. Like a lot of people are smelling cigar smoke or cigarette smoke, but there's no cigarette smoking around them. So that's when you're smelling phantom smells. Good point though to that is that does indicate to us right now that your brain is trying to rewire and repath. So if you're experiencing that, although they're awful and hard to deal with, it is a good sign. Parosmia is when you're smelling something that's not what it is. So if you're smelling an apple, but it smells like garbage. So that's happening for people too. So imagine, you can't smell, and then all of a sudden you start smelling, but you're smelling all this weird stuff that's not correct. You're still sort of tasting, but still sort of not. You're only getting, the sweet or the sour. You're not getting to flavor yet. And that's your life every single day. That's tough.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
that's
definitely.
Really tough.
And isn't it too? I mean, it is tied to the brain. So couldn't there also be the potential of like a bigger problem? Like, we know with COVID, people lost their sense. So a lot of people did, but couldn't it also maybe indicate something wrong with the brain or a tumor or whatever? I mean, I'm just saying, with the sense of smell, would there be anything that serious to look at or?
I don't think so, but I don't know. I would have to look into that more.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I don't think as far as, would it go into tumors or cancers or anything like that? I don't think so. I've not seen that come up in the research. But not 100% sure. And a lot of people will ask me too, well, so I've lost my smell for 2 weeks. I've lost it for 2 months. It's going on a year now. Will I ever get it back? There's a lot of variables that are unknown. We don't know why some people are 2 weeks and other people's are a year. I do encourage people that the moment they call me and say, hey, it's happening, like it's just like physical therapy, scent therapy. Like if you injure your leg, the faster you get to PT, the faster that leg is going to heal. It's the same concept here. The faster your system has been impacted, the faster you get to therapy, the faster it's going to heal. Consistency is very key in scent therapy, doing it on a regimen every single day, twice a day. Same thing with physical therapy. If you don't do the homework, you're not going to get as better quickly, that's not the right word, quickly. So the same thing applies. So yeah, that's like the sense of smell. And when you really step back and you look at it, it's a much bigger issue than it first appears.
Yeah. It's very interesting. Well, I want to keep us on track here because we have about maybe 5-10 minutes left here. And let's get to closing out on the good stuff because we started talking about like the sense of smell and taste. So it's funny. I named my podcast Uncorked with Funny Wine Girl, and I don't talk a lot about wine. And I never really set out to. I want that to kind of be part of it. But you are a wine drinker. And I know that obviously you love going to the Finger Lakes. You have rental property there and you and your husband go there quite a bit. So what kind of wines? Tell us some of the wines you enjoy. And maybe because you mentioned earlier, since the pandemic, as we know, everything has changed. Wine tastings have changed since the pandemic. I know I can't wait to get up there in February, but I haven't been up there in well over maybe 2 years. Tell me about some of your favorites and then how the experience has changed up there at the Finger Lakes in New York.
Sure. So when I first started drinking wine, when I was younger, I was very much like the sweeter, the better. The sweeter, the juicier, the fruitier, the better. That's all I was into. And the dries were too dry, too tannic, and that was a no-go for me. But we spent a year up there, my husband and I, and we opened up actually one of our shops up there on the wine trail. So we were up there for a year. And that is when I really got into wine. We became friends with the winemakers. We knew all the wineries. We really sort of got just ingrained in the culture there. And that opened up many, many doors for us. So I then very much switched to being a dry red drinker. And I got a great mile. I'll never forget it. It was a great bottle of Ryan William Vineyard on Seneca Lake. They came to us and gave us a basket of their wine, and there was a Cab Franc in there That was from a beautiful vintage. I love actually 2013 for Cab Francs was my favorite vintage of all time coming out of the Finger Lakes. And it was just a fantastic year for growing red grapes, and the wine was beautiful. So I started drinking that and sort of never looked back. Now don't get me wrong, like I'll do a wine slushy in the summer. I'll do something like really sweet for fun in the summer, but I'm primarily, a dry. Cab Francs are my favorite in the red. So the bigger, the deeper, the bolder is what I like. I kind of funny make fun of Pinot Noirs because they say it's like red with training wheels. Um, which is like not really a fair thing to say because it's a very finicky grape. It's very difficult to grow a Pinot Noir in the Finger Lakes. Cab Francs grow really well there in the climate. So I love what's coming out of the Finger Lakes and Cab Francs. I also have really developed a love for the Rieslings. They can really run the gamut from going to a super sweet late harvest or nice all the way down to a very, dry, minerally shale stone, very acidic, citrus, lemony forward Riesling. It's interesting to watch that grape and how different wineries and winemakers can translate that same grape based on, the vineyard and how the vineyard is run and the terroir of the vineyard and then how the winemaker works it in the cellar. But it's so interesting to watch. And I was really blessed to be able to meet the winemakers, work with them directly. I did some fragrance projects with them, and that's how I really began to love wine. So I'm very, pro Finger Lakes. Our rentals are on Seneca Lake. I love the wineries there, and they're doing, great wine is coming out of that region, and it's really fascinating.
It's interesting you mentioned Riesling because that is one of the wines. I do like it, but unless you know and you're familiar with the wine, you can get, like you said, you can get some that are like really sweet and then some that aren't. And obviously when you go for a tasting, they'll describe it for you. But if you're just at a restaurant and you just order a Riesling and you may not get a description, but they can be very different, the Rieslings. They really can.
Very much so. Yeah. And like to your point, like at a restaurant, like you really need to know, like, is this a semi-dry? Is it a semi-sweet Riesling? Because they do run the gamut from, zero residual sugars, up to the late harvest, which may have like 12%. So you have to sort of know what you're getting into with the Riesling. Very, very, very true point.
I'm more, it's funny that you say about the reds because I never loved like real sweet, but I'm also not like the Cab Francs. I've tried those through the years at tastings and those are pretty dry for me, but I'm a white wine drinker. I'm more like now the Sauvignon Blanc, the Chenin Blanc, the Viogniers. I don't like super sweet, but like a semi, but I can do like for the reds, I like a Shiraz. Maybe a Cabernet or a Red Zinfandel or something, but I'm still the training wheel category.
And there's a lot to explore. There's a lot of experimenting going on up there because of Cornell. They do a really strong viticulture program up there. So there's a lot of experimental grapes. Actually, we're really good friends with one of the premier grape growers. So he's just a grape grower. And he sells his grapes to the wineries. So he's taken us on to some experimental plots and we got to try some of the grapes that are in the experimental phase. And like some of them one of them tasted just like a really hoppy beer. One was like super plum forward. There's so much experimentation going on with creating hybrids and even cloning and things like that Cornell is doing up there that I think drives that region. So you can even, when you go into the reds, there's the Baco Noirs are really fun and earthy and kind of dirty and mushroomy. And then like the Marshall Foch are nice. The Lemberger, which is also called Blanc Frankish. That's an awesome red too, a little bit on the deeper, darker side for you, but there's fun. There's fun to be had because you can try a lot of different things and the different wineries do it all differently.
Yeah. And now the winter we're going up and I know it's probably going to be cold, but it's a beautiful area every time, every season. I've mostly been there in the fall and the summer, but I'm looking forward to it. It's interesting. I was there for my birthday, probably 5 years ago in the Watkins Glen area. And we stayed at a little B&B on the main street there. And I remember saying, I wonder what it's like here in the winter. Now I'm going to get to find out.
Winter is great. It's when before we had our rentals up there, Mark and I would go up primarily in the winter because there's not as many people, it's not as crowded, it was not as touristy. Your tastings were very individualized. So we love it up there in the off season. I think you do get sort of a better experience in a sense because it's just quieter and calmer. Summers are very, very busy. But we were talking about earlier how tastings have changed with COVID. So prior to the pandemic, typically, you'd go up to the bar, you'd pay $5, you'd sample 5 or 6 wines. They would present them to you one at a time, and they would tell you about each wine. So some of the New York regulations during the pandemic was like no bar seating. You couldn't stand at a bar, you couldn't sit at a bar. So everybody had to be seated during tastings. So then it became a self-guided flight. So they would say, here's our red flight, here's our white flight. You pick either or. And then all 5, like say you pick the red flight, all 5 reds would come to your table with a little guide. They would sort of give you a quick presentation, then you would go through it on your own. So the changes happen now. Not all wineries are doing the exact same thing. Some are still doing it the old way. But a good majority of them have switched to more of this seated tastings, self-guided flights. And I like it because it's a little bit more intimate, and I like the seated aspect of it, but I sort of do miss having the one-on-one interaction with the staff to get the explanation of every single one. So I think that piece sort of got lost in translation. But the seated aspect of it is nice too. And it's because it's your own table. So it's nice and like private. So some things have changed. A lot of people are doing, either reservation only, or you should definitely check to make sure. A lot of people have shortened days or shortened hours, and it's all evolving though. A lot of people will ask me, how is it right now? And it does change, like monthly. It's changing how people are running their businesses up there. But it is still producing great wine.
Yeah. So the best thing is just maybe check out the website, their Facebook, whatever, and just find out. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be my best advice. Like if you were really set on the vineyards that you wanted to go to, I would recommend before you go to call them up. Sometimes I don't even rely on Facebook and social anymore, or Google. I would call them up and say, hey, what's it like right now? And if you need to, get in there, then you make your reservation. That's the best advice I can give people as far as making their experience what they want it to be.
Okay. And I know you have another call to hop on. So we are going to wrap up this conversation. I want to thank you, excuse me, so much for joining me.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for asking.
What I expected and so much more. It was really
good.
interesting.
I'm glad. I feel like we could probably talk for 2 more hours, right?
I know. And that's the great part about knowing women like you are so interesting. And honestly, I'm not just kissing your butt, but no, because you could talk and just really, your interests and things that you're passionate about, we could go on for a long time, but yeah. I know you have to go. So I will just say thank you to my listeners. Please check out Noteology. They're all over Facebook, Instagram, the website. Check out what Danielle's been up to. And she's just phenomenal force. I'm happy to know her. I'm happy she's here in Scranton where I live, because I think it's fantastic because you're only making the region better. So
thank you. Appreciate that. That's very kind.
Thank you so much for listening. You've been listening to Uncorked with Funny Wine Girl. This is Funny Wine Girl, aka Janine Luby. Uncork something aromatic. And if you like what you've heard today, please share it with a friend, and don't forget to subscribe. I thank you from the bottom of my heart and the bottom of my wine glass.